Hello and welcome to News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. I am Aditya Raj Kaul. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, shortly after his visit to Germany, dismissed arguments that BRICS is unnecessary and said that he was amazed by the insecurity felt by the developed nations about the group, which includes China, Russia and 6 other nations. Jaishankar, while speaking at the Global Center for Security Policy in Switzerland's Geneva, said if the G7 can exist alongside the G20, there is no reason why BRICS cannot exist. Jaishankar questioned why there is opposition to BRICS, especially when groups like G7 continue to exist alongside the G20. Jaishankar said that if the G7, a group of advanced economies, can remain intact despite the presence of the G20, then BRICS, a coalition of the emerging economies, should also be allowed to exist. Meanwhile, the US President Joe Biden will host the 4th in-person Quad Leader Summit in Delaware on September 21st, the White House has announced. The summit will bring together Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese of Australia, and Prime Minister Fumio Kishida of Japan. The upcoming summit will focus on strengthening strategic alignment among the 4 nations and advancing a shared vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific region. Discussions will cover key issues like health, security, disaster response, maritime security, infrastructure development, emerging technologies, climate change, clean energy, and cyber security as well. Let's listen in first to what External Affairs Minister Jaishankar actually said in Geneva that has really made the headlines.
Why the BRICS was necessary given the fact that the G20 exists. But I heard your answer.
Yeah, but I must tell you, I'm still struck by how insecure the North is when you speak about the BRICS.
There is a club, the BRICS. Why this club? And do you consider that the BRICS will expand?
Well, to be honest, why the club? Because there was another club. It was called the G7, and you wouldn't let anybody else into that club. So we said we go and form our own club. So we decided, okay, we are also, good citizens of good standing who have a place in the global society, and therefore this is how typically clubs multiply. So it started, and as it started, like many clubs, it gained a life of its own. Over a period of time, others saw value in it as well. So in a sense, I would say, it's actually a very interesting group, because if you look at it, typically any club or any group has either a geographical contiguity or some common historical experience, or very strong economic connect. There are some orthodox binding factors.
And joining me on the debate today is Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, former Indian diplomat, and Dr. Swasti Rao, Associate Fellow, MP, IDSA, and expert on Russia-Ukraine affairs. Ambassador Sajanhar, let me begin by asking you, what was your takeaway? You heard, Jaishankar. And over the last 3 years, I've observed this thing, that while speaking in Europe especially, Dr. Jaishankar is, almost habitual of showing the mirror to the West, especially Europe, be it on energy takeaway from Russia, be it on an independent, sovereign, stand being taken on the key issues, including the Russia-Ukraine war. And this time around on the groupings, really, the G7 and the BRICS. What's your takeaway? Is it G7, which is a restricted club where others are not allowed completely? And was the kind of a, quip that they took on BRICS really required?
Yeah, thank you very much, Aditya. I think, the first comment that you made as to why is it that Dr. Jaishankar sort of, has been able to respond in the manner that he's been able to when he's in Europe. I think the Europeans asked for it. Whenever the questions that have been posed, I think it should really be very clear to them as to what is the response going to be.
Right.
I think to the credit also of Dr. Jaishankar, I would say that he is not aggressive in any way. He is not offensive in any way. He is not pugilistic in any way. But he still pushes back against whatever suggestion that is coming from whoever his interlocutor might be. He gently but firmly pushes them back, and I think his answers are rooted in fact and in the reality of the situation. Because if you look at it, what is, the question that was asked, why does BRICS need to exist today? I think we have to go back to 2001 when, the whole idea of BRICS came up. And the idea was that the emerging market economies were not getting their due in the world. So they had to come together. And at that time, you would recall when, Jim O'Neill had come up from Goldman Sachs, had come up with this idea. It was said that these would be large countries that are large in territorial area, large in population, large in terms of economic size. And they will come together and they will have a very important role to play. After that, you remember the first meeting of the BRICS foreign ministers took place in 2006. The first summit took place in 2009 in Yekaterinburg in Russia. And after that, of course, as far as BRICS is concerned, there has been no looking back. They have been moving forward. Right now, of course, it is, BRICS is evolving into much more than just an economic grouping of emerging market economies. It has very many political connotations, because if you look at the expansion that took place, 5 countries original members, or 4 countries original members of BRICS, South Africa added in 2010, and then last year at the Johannesburg summit, we have 6 other countries also added, out of which Argentina drops out, so we have now 10 members. But the 5 that have been added, Aditya, I would like to underline that, that the original criterion of large area, large population, large economy, they have not been adhered to. And right now it is becoming, of course, an economic grouping, but also an equally, if not more so, a political grouping. And I think that is what is making the Western nations particularly nervous and uncomfortable. Aditya.
But Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, let me put it, very boldly here, that do you think that India's rise, India's diplomatic rise, India's stature increasing over the last few years is being seen by the West as a direct threat to the global governance structures, to the kind of multilateral systems that have been adopted, or the kind of definitions of democracy that have been imposed, perhaps also with the rise of the global South over the last 2 to 3 years, the way India adopted, Africa as a permanent member of the G20 as well. And finally, now we see BRICS directly being attacked. So is there some kind of apprehension among the West of India's rise, and that perhaps is the real reason of these kind of statements time and again coming in from Europe?
To be very candid, I don't think so. In my view, the world wants India to succeed. The world wants India to succeed both economically as well as politically, strategically, and security-wise. And there are different reasons for that, because if it is a significant military power, significant political power, then of course, whether it is the United States or Europe, they are looking at the threat and the challenge that is being posed by China. So can India be a good, a reasonable, effective counterpoise to that? Even as far as economically, it is economics. Today India is accounting for 17% of the global GDP growth, which is a significant growth. So the more that India grows, the more will it be beneficial for the global economy, and the world really wants that. The last point I want to make here is that they would much rather have a democracy with whom they have some differences on some issues or the other grow and occupy its rightful place in the world, rather than have, according to them, autocracies like China and Russia growing, rising, and occupying much bigger space.
I'll request you to hold your thoughts there. Very important points there by Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar. Dr. Swasti Rao joins us live from Europe right now. Dr. Rao, what did you infer from the statement of External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, and what do you think was the message really for the West when he said that BRICS equally deserves a right to exist if the G7 does alongside the G20?
Well, yes, I think it's self-explanatory, which is that the first thing is that just like G7 or G20, the BRICS or any other grouping, multilateral grouping especially, has every right to exist. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it is also a suggestion to Europe to learn to ask intelligent questions, because it is very strange that even after so many conversations, especially strategic conversations and convergences that we have with Europe today, we are still in a situation where we are asked these extremely basic elementary questions. So I personally think that for every single time Dr. Jaishankar is in Europe, he also gives a slight nudge, okay, to
Yes.
the European journalists to actually
Yes.
learn a little bit more about where India is coming from and what is the Indian strategic context and the history has been. So I guess it's pretty much that. On a different note, I think just because a grouping has a right to exist doesn't mean that there are no problems. Of course, we are all aware of the fact that every grouping would come with its own internal, pulls and pressures and tensions. So, of course, we have our own view on the BRICS expansion. There is no doubting the fact that, global South and more countries of the global South who wish to keep their options open in a very uncertain world are definitely looking at BRICS. And one of the reasons why they look at BRICS is because of the presence of India. So, adding to what Ambassador Sajjanar has already said and not repeating that, I think I would be very brief and say that that it is in many ways the fact that there is a group of countries in the world that do not adhere, to what the Western countries would perhaps believe in, and in that. Regard, they do look at India in terms of being the voice and the leader of what their real, genuine concerns are. And India is very, I would say, wonderfully placed today as this growing economy that has excellent ties with the West. So we no
Right.
longer have any, conflict per se. So it would be wrong to convey that we are in some perpetual conflict with the West. I think not only the defense minister but the external affairs minister have said it again and again from different platforms that yes, these are one of the most important strategic partnerships for India. But despite that, it does not take away from the fact that India has its own worldview, is entitled to have its own worldview, and it is good for the world to have the Indian worldview.
We've seen over the last few weeks and months, India put out a very strong, comment on how India views the Russia-Ukraine war. Prime Minister Modi was one of the first leaders to say that this is not an era of war. Solutions really cannot be found in a battlefield. And thereafter, we've seen, of course, the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval in Russia, the External Affairs Minister in Germany, again talking about some kind of a diplomacy and negotiation. Do you think there isn't much reconciliatory kind of a message or a tone coming in from the West, and West doesn't seem like has reached a stage where they actually want to sit on the dialogue table and have a peace plan with Russia, and perhaps would at least wait till the end of the US elections?
Yeah, so I think the world wants India to take an initiative, because I think India has truly proved itself to be the bridge between the East and the West, whether it is, Russia or, on one side of the Ukraine conflict, and the Western countries, Europe, US, and Ukraine, and also North and South, since we were talking about BRICS earlier. So, North and the South also. It is, I think there are hardly any other country in the world which can go today to both to Russia as well as to Ukraine and get the same sort of welcome and respect, and have a dialogue, have a conversation on how we can move forward, how we can deal with this particular issue. So I think he has been able to convey certain messages and certain, as the Prime Minister himself has called, certain interesting ideas from Moscow to Kiev and vice versa. And he's also kept President Biden also in the loop. And now we know that there's going to be another meeting with President Biden. You mentioned yourself, the fourth in-person Quad Summit takes place in Delaware on the 21st.
Right.
So I think there will be that opportunity. And in addition to what your two comments that you made, Aditya, yourself,
Yeah.
one is not an era of war. Number two, no solutions on the battlefield, and that there has to be, the end has to be through negotiations, through diplomacy. And India has positioned itself in such a way that we are willing and ready to help in whatever way we can. But I think, of course, the ultimate decision as to how they want to go forward will have to be between the two warring parties. You know, it is a mediator coming and saying, trying to bring the two parties when they themselves are not ready. That will not work. That will not succeed. So I think India has made its position very clear that we have best of both sides in view. We know that the Russia-Ukraine conflict is creating problems,
Right.
not only for these two countries, not only for Europe, but for the whole world. You know, when we saw the shortages of food, fossil fuels, fertilizers, etc., and supply chain disruptions that have taken place. So it is good for the whole world if the conflict comes to an end. And India is willing to play its role as and when these two parties want it and need it.
Fair enough. One last comment from you briefly, Ambassador Sajanhar, is about the Quad summit that is really going to happen. We've seen considerable delays in this, and now we know that the United States, in fact, has switched the roles from India. Will be hosting it this year, and India would be taking over next year. But is this merely a symbolic exercise ahead of the elections in the United States, a message of sorts that Biden administration would like to send across, particularly to China, ahead of the elections, and perhaps domestically could help them out? Or do you think that there would be a larger message that will involve the Quad countries during the summit?
Thank you, Aditya. I think that's an excellent question and very relevant question. Let's look at the evolution of the Quad over the last 3.5 years since President Biden came to power. As soon as he was sworn in on the 21st of January, the first virtual Quad summit, first ever virtual Quad summit, took place in March of 2021. That is within 2 months.
Right.
The first in-person took place in September 2021. The second in-person in Tokyo, May 22, and the third in-person in Hiroshima, again in May 22. You know, the Quad countries are being very innovative and very creative because it had become clear for quite some time that India will not be able to host the summit this year because the US president will not be able to travel there.
Right.
And in any case, after he withdrew from the race, you know, there was no sense of his going and for that particular summit. But like in 23, you would recall that President Biden was in Hiroshima. He was to go to Sydney for the Australia summit, but he had to come back quickly. He could not, he cancelled his visit both to Papua New Guinea as well as to Sydney because of, certain negotiations in the Congress. So the countries decided that they will have the summit in Hiroshima itself on the sidelines of the G7 summit,
Right.
for which all of them were there. So this time also, I think a very good, clever via media has been found. So there are two reasons. One, substantively, it's going to be very important because I would draw your attention to the meeting of the foreign ministers of the Quad that took place in Tokyo on the 29th of July. A very substantive meeting, a very substantive declaration. So taking the elements you mentioned about the free and open Indo-Pacific, freedom of navigation, freedom of overflights, etc.
Right.
All that is there, but I think the agenda is being significantly expanded. Secondly, the messaging, the symbolism. That's also very important. Why do I say that? Because if the summit had not happened, there are very many naysayers and doubters who would have said that, these major players, America, India, etc., they have lost interest in this. It is
Right.
not having any traction. So I think it was for symbolism also, it was extremely important that a summit should take place. And I think next year when India hosts the summit, it's going to be very significant because you will have a new US president, you will have a new Japanese prime minister.
Right.
So I think it will be able to have a sort of a fresh start in taking the Quad and sort of, taking forward all the decisions that have been taken and how to actualize them, how to implement them on the ground.
When we are actually talking about the message from the Quad and its new kind of an avatar next year when India hosts it, and what the message would be for China, I want to finally ask you a last question, Ambassador Sajanhar, about the mediation that India has been trying to do, or at least offered, in respect to Russia and Ukraine. We saw NSA Ajit Doval also in Russia meeting Putin. We heard an audio of it as well. But could Russia also be trying to mediate between India and China? We saw the meeting between Doval and Wang Yi taking place. We've seen considerable developments over the last few years, ever since Galwan, military as well as diplomatic dialogue taking place. Jaishankar also mentioning that 75% of the issues have been tackled till now. What do you think could be Russia's role in it, which is close to both China and India?
Yeah, again, an interesting question. I think basically Russia's role is to provide a platform where both sides can meet, can discuss. I don't think it is wanting to have a role beyond that. I would like to draw your attention. If you remember, in 2020, just after Galwan had taken place, Russia was the chair of SCO.
Yeah.
There was the foreign ministers of the SCO who were meeting. On the 4th of September, if my memory serves me correctly, Mr. Rajnath Singh was there in Moscow, and he met his Chinese counterpart, Chinese defense minister, to discuss the Galwan issue. It was very, very fresh at that time. In June it had taken place, September they were meeting. On the 10th of September, Dr. Jaishankar and Wang Yi was again the foreign minister at that time. In between we had an interregnum when another foreign minister, Chinese foreign minister came. But
Right.
in 2020 it was Wang Yi. The point I'm making is at that time also, it was the platform that was provided, that on the sidelines of the SCO meetings that took place in Moscow, that these meetings were organized. Similarly, this time also, when Mr. Doval is there and his counterpart Wang Yi, who's there for the BRICS for NSA's meeting. So that also they provide an opportunity that you get together and try to sort out. But let's face it, Dr. Jaishankar has met Wang Yi twice last month. Once on the sidelines in Astana, on the sidelines of the SCO summit, and then again in Laos on the sidelines of the ASEAN foreign ministers meeting. So I think the opportunities are there. Several opportunities present themselves because our leaders are moving from one place to the other so very frequently.
Yes.
But I don't think, to come to your question, I don't think Russia has any more of a role to play in terms of bringing them together, meaning it keeps on voicing that it will be good for the world, it will be good for these countries if they're able to resolve their differences, and it would like to encourage both of them. But I think beyond that,
Fair enough.
I don't think there's any role for Russia.
Absolutely. We'll have to wait and watch how the West really takes that googly of External Affairs Minister Jaishankar on G7, on understanding BRICS more. But we are living in a deeply divided world, and certainly there's more to witness from BRICS to SCO to, in fact, the G20 later this year. Thank you very much, Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, for your valued opinions.
Thank you.
And hope to see you again very soon. And Dr. Swasti Rao for joining us. Thank you very much. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has announced that she is ready to resign over the standoff with doctors shortly after a meeting with junior doctors was aborted. The doctors were invited to the State Secretariat for a meeting on Thursday, but wanted a live telecast of the meeting to take place. The Chief Minister assured the doctors that no action will be taken against them and that the government was willing for a dialogue process to begin. The protesting junior doctors have blamed the administration for its rigidity in not allowing the live streaming of the meeting for transparency. Meanwhile, the West Bengal Governor C.V. Ananda Bose launched an attack against Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, calling her Lady Macbeth of Bengal, saying he would socially boycott her. Bose said he would no longer share any public platform with Banerjee, citing the outrage over the rape and murder of a trainee doctor in R.G. Kar Hospital in Kolkata. BJP as well has dubbed Mamata Banerjee's statement as mere drama. That brings us to the questions that we ask on the News 9 Plus show today. Isn't it time for Mamata Banerjee to have a public dialogue with the doctors and assure unconditional protection and justice? Is Mamata Banerjee's resignation call merely a drama to play victim in the controversy which has damaged her government's reputation? And finally, is Mamata Banerjee more keen to stifle the voice of the doctors and attack BJP instead of finding a solution in larger public good and society? Let's listen in to Mamata Banerjee and what CV Ananda Bose had said.
আমি মানুষের স্বার্থে এমনকি নিজে পদত্যাগ করতেও রাজি আছি। আমার মুখ্যমন্ত্রীর পদ চাই না, কিন্তু আমি চাই মানুষ বিচার পাক, তিলোত্তমা বিচার পাক আর সাধারণ মানুষ চিকিৎসা পাক।
मुख्यमंत्री सुरक्षा करने के बजाय विरोध कर रहे हैं। बंगाल की लेडी मकबत, बंगाल की लेडी मकबत कौन है? शेक्सपियर की लेडी मकबत।
Joining me on the debate today are Kanchan Gupta, Senior Advisor, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India, Kiya Ghosh, Spokesperson of the BJP West Bengal, and Shubhankar Bhattacharya, Spokesperson TMC. Mr. Bhattacharya, let me come across to you straight. You know, why is this kind of an approach being adopted by a Chief Minister? You know, why can't for a minute she leave politics alone and stand up for her people? Instead of attacking and stifling the voice of the doctors, why doesn't she come up on ground? She is known to be a street fighter. Come, sit with the doctors and have a solution finally instead of playing politics.
Well, now this has far gone above any political level, basically. See, what has happened over there, if you understand, then you have seen that empty hall, which was actually, you have seen the chief minister waiting for the junior doctors to come in for the talk. And if it isn't politics, then I don't find any reason why the doctors shouldn't have turned up. That shows, that what kind of background preparation is being made for a political interest by a particular party over there that seeks a huge ground building status in West Bengal. And at the very same time, it's not very happy situation, because having taken the cue from the student protests that we have seen in the Bangladesh, now if the same thing is going to happen in West Bengal, then I should say that it is not a very good precedent being set in India.
Are you trying to say that the protesting doctors are puppets of the BJP, are being put across by the BJP, and they do not have any kind of an independent say in West Bengal?
See, there's a very simple question. I don't know. I'm no one to actually speak anything, on behalf of the doctors over there. But I don't find any reason why shouldn't the representative of the Doctors Association should come around and sit along with the chief minister, who has actually laid the ground for a talk, at least a basic, any discussion, and demanding, for a media trial, and that is far above anything which is, I think, what Mamata Banerjee could have done about a matter that is already sub judice.
Okay, let me get the BJP voice here. Kiya Ghosh, you've been hearing the TMC representative say, in other words, that the doctors, in fact, are perhaps BJP puppets. They do not want a media trial. But what is the solution really out there? Why is Mamata Banerjee trying to play to the gallery when she says that she's ready to resign, but no fundamental steps really being taken for the doctors or for the women folk of West Bengal?
Aditya, let me put this very straight, that Mamata Banerjee, she's absolutely, like you said, she's playing to the gallery. She's trying to evoke sympathy, which has long left her, and people of West Bengal have actually understood what the real situation and what mentality Mamata Banerjee nurses towards these doctors. Having said that, TMC's friend, colleague Shubhankar just mentioned that Mamata Banerjee was waiting for 1.5 to 2 hours. I would humbly like to remind him that Abhaya's parents, they were made to wait for 3 hours till they could see the corpse, the dead body of their child, of their daughter, who was molested, who was raped, who was beaten up, and who was dead. So, and not only that, the people of West Bengal have been waiting for justice. We have been demanding for justice. We are on the streets since last over a month.
Right.
Mamata Banerjee waiting for 1.5 hours, and let me complete by saying this. I don't know what politics Shubhankar or Trinamool can see. They are trying to link each and every doctor. They are trying to do a background check. It is absolutely a social awakening, which Mamata Banerjee, I'm sure she can read in the walls. And having said that, what is the problem with a live telecast, live streaming? This is not the first time Mamata Banerjee has had live streamings. She is frying pakoras, frying aloo chop. We have had seen live telecast of the same. We have seen live telecast of her administrative meetings. So where is the problem? You know where the problem lies. I'll come to that. The problem lies that these doctors would say some words which wouldn't be very comfortable for Mamata Banerjee to hear. They would be pointing out the corruption, the mountain of corruptions which have been we have seen in Arjikor Hospital. And not only the Arjikor, a number of other hospitals. The doctors would be mentioning the threat culture which they have been facing. Courtesy Trinamool doctors or goons, I don't know, like Ovik Dey and Virupakha Biswas. So Mamata Banerjee, knowing all these things, she didn't want the live streaming to happen. And sub judice, when we see the live streaming of Supreme Court proceedings, when we can see the live streaming of High Court proceedings, what is there to hide and what is there so secret? This is not any international discussions happening between two countries that we can't have a live streaming. So basically, Mamata Banerjee, she doesn't want the people of Bengal, journalists like you, news media like you, to know what is actually happening there.
Fair enough. Let me get a senior voice on, this discussion, a voice of reason. Kanchan Gupta, who's been tracking West Bengal, is a person who has in fact spoken out and written about it in greater detail for decades together. Kanchanda, let me begin by asking you, why is Mamata Banerjee so, irritated? There are people and youth in West Bengal that are waiting for recruitment. TET qualified candidates waiting since 2014. There are SLST qualified candidates waiting since 2016. There are BDS graduates waiting since 2017 for their recruitment. And Mamata Banerjee cannot wait for 2 hours for the students or allow a live telecast. What does this say about the Chief Minister, as the governor, in fact, has described her as a Lady Macbeth of Bengal?
Thank you, Aditya, for having me in this show. Aditya, the issue here is not party politics here. It is the whole idea is that one individual who cannot countenance anybody challenging her, anybody questioning her, anybody disputing her, and that is how it is. I think Mamata Banerjee is totally shaken that the entire state seems to be standing up against her.
Right.
And this is something which she could never imagine. This is something she cannot even sort of begin to accept, leave alone, internalize it. So it's a problem of acceptance. Now, seen against this backdrop, it is obvious that she is, there's a sense of frustration in her. There's a sense of anger in her, and she's hitting out right, left, and center. Now, her waiting for the students, that is how negotiations happen. Every time there's a strike in a factory, the management waits from morning till midnight for the union people to come and touch base with them. So who is she? Who is she that they made me wait for 2 hours, they made me wait for 3 hours, they made me wait for 4 hours? That is now not how it works. This is almost like the queen in Alice in Wonderland, that there and off with his head. Now, that will not work. It is by now very clear that this agitation, this protest cannot be brought to an end by adopting a stand like hers. It has to be, she has to climb down from a high horse, and the TMC has to be told to back off. We only see what's happening in Calcutta, but I get videos from the districts where the local TMC netas, the kind of language they are recorded as using against the protesters, the kind of, the attitude they sort of display in the districts, in the villages. Nobody will feel safe. Nobody will want to go and talk to the leader of this kind of a lumpen party. And this is something she must accept. She must realize that this is not the TMC which had come to power by dislodging the left.
Right.
This is a TMC which is a million times worse than what we saw during the left rule.
Fair enough, fair
this
enough.
is-
Kanchan Gupta, I'll come back to you. Let me get in Shubhankar Bhattacharya at this stage. Shubhankar, any course correction? Shubhankar, will you look out to the people of West Bengal and say that yes, there were mistakes committed. Yes, there were TMC goons who perhaps attacked the RG car, and perhaps there were mistake at the very highest level done by Mamata Banerjee. By only saying that I'm ready to resign, things are not going to change. There seems to be a difference in what you're saying and what you're doing.
First of all, let me answer. I heard a lot from all the guests that you're having on the panel. So let me get into bit into the whataboutery as well, and you have to permit me that. The reason behind is that we are sitting in a country where the NCRB report says that we are having a rape every 15 minutes. That is like having 4 rapes an hour, 96 rapes in a day, and today's 25th day, almost 2,500 rape cases. And if we are just picking out one case, then we are not fighting rape. We are fighting something other thing.
The debate,
Here,
Mr. Bhattacharya,
political
is
guest
not
doesn't
about the rapes
understand.
all across the country. I
Please,
admit,
you didn't.
as
See, this is the
someone,
problem.
Mr. Bhattacharya, listen to me. I'll give you equal opportunity. As someone who has fought a, rape case inside the court that set a precedent on rape laws in the country, I can tell you that this is not a debate on the rapes that are taking place across the country. That's a larger debate. We have been having that continuously, and we will have that. But you are a responsible citizen. You are representing an ideology of TMC on the debate today. Please answer. What are you going to do about the RG car rape and murder case? Why has there been a lackadaisical approach? Why is the political head of the West Bengal government completely silent and completely not doing much, just saying that she will resign, but then blaming the doctors and saying that they are perhaps the BJP puppets? Answer on this particular case.
No. When you ask a question, you have to be patient enough to, hear the answer, and whether you accept it or not, I'll be having my own perspective, and that will give without any pressure from from whatever the debate course you want to take. But the very first thing that I want to say over here is, number one, when you are just over monitoring one state, one particular case, and there is entire media over it. The Supreme Court has taken its course. The matter is in the hands of CBI. So that means that we don't trust the CBI. That comes under the central government, but nobody, you are not seeking answers from them. The entire onus is on one person, that is the chief minister over there. Okay, fine. But then why shouldn't we why shouldn't we talk about the 4-year-old little child who was raped in Maharashtra? I didn't see much of the course over there. And these people who act so much, being sensitive about the rape in India, so they are not fighting the crime. They're not fighting the rape as a crime. They're just fighting to topple a government. And that is the fact behind it. If the doctor's procession is not politically motivated, then they should have gone and at least have seated with Mamata Banerjee, had a discussion over there, put up this thing, and then again you can always come forward with the media trial or whatever trial you want to have. But what's I don't know what keeps you off from coming to the table and discussing. See, I come to this panel, I know that I will be attacked from all the sides, but I don't keep myself off from coming over here, despite, so that we can have a voice, we can have a perspective kept in front. The acceptance is something, that's on the larger end. But again, the question lies in the same place, that we are not seeking to stop rape in India. The very first anti-rape law has been introduced in West Bengal. But what are we doing at the central level? What are we doing to stop the crime in itself? We are just targeting a government to topple it up. And it has now become a very good, I think, a political opportunity. It has given a political opportunity for the governor to play his role over there. So I think he's doing a fantastic job in aiding his own political interests through the political party he is completely biased towards.
The question really is that what will a rape law really do? What will a rape law really do when the political master sitting as a chief minister is instead, completely putting her energy in playing politics with the BJP? Yes, I take your opinion that the BJP might be politicizing this as well, but the TMC is doing that as well. Why, as the chief minister, she cannot parallelly look at independently in a very apolitical fashion towards the interest of the doctors and the women folk? That is the big question. Kia Ghosh, you heard again the TMC representative how he is trying to deflect the attention completely towards politics and towards rapes taking place all across the country. In the past, I have heard this, that in many rape cases, it is the criminals who say that there is a media trial underway. They have something to hide. They do not want media or the larger society to know what exactly happened, who was involved, who was protecting the guilty in this particular case. Do you think that by banning media channels, by banning TMC representatives to have media debates, this is going to help the TMC narrative in this entire RG Car episode? How is Mamata Banerjee really going to deal with this anymore?
See, Aditya, how Mamata Banerjee is going to deal with the situation is up to her and her party. However, I really applaud Shubhankar for the courage he's displaying, which he knows he would be. So why was the hurry for the cremation? No answer for these others. No answer. And one more thing. Mamata Banerjee, they are saying why the doctors were hell-bent about having their live streaming. I will give you the answer. We have seen the submission of Honorable Solicitor General in the Supreme Court of India in front of the Honorable Division benches, where Honorable Solicitor General has clearly mentioned that out of the entire CCTV footage, they received only 27 minutes, and that too with glitches. So what is the guarantee that yesterday the live, the video recording which Mamata Banerjee's government promised of the conversation between Mamata Banerjee and the doctors, what was the surety that this video wouldn't have glitches? There wouldn't have been any corrupt hard disk in this matter. There wouldn't be any so-called, edited version of this video. So, which is
fair enough. Very important questions. Very significant questions. Kiya Ghosh, I want to hold you at that thought because I'm running out of time. Kanchan Gupta, 30 seconds I have. If you can comment on the kind of a blackout that the West Bengal government is trying to do, stifle not just the doctors and the protesting people out there. We saw how water cannons were used, how, every, power that the government has in its command is being used. And now, since September 1, we have been seeing media also being blacked out completely. Many channels have been boycotted completely by the TMC. What is there to hide that they don't want to come out and speak?
Yeah, so quickly, I will come to that point, but a very quick response to the gobbledygook which the TMC spokesman who says that he is so brave to come here, but all that bravery sort of disappears on the streets of Calcutta as of now. Look, I don't want to comment on the ongoing investigation because that is actually being monitored by the High Court and the Supreme Court. So I do not wish to go into that area. But look at the politics of it. You are saying this, what about this rape that was committed here? What about that rape that was committed there? How many people are raped every day? Of the total number of rapes in India every day since this unfortunate and tragic death of a doctor after she was raped, presumably after, not before. So if you look at it, there's a vast difference. This is an institutional crime. This is not a crime that happened somewhere in someone's house, some hotel, some street, or somewhere else.
Right.
This is an institutional crime. So no, these are points which were never sort of highlighted, and that's why the TMC continues to get away with this whataboutery. It is an institutional crime which was committed in a government-run institution, which was under the direct jurisdiction of the health minister, and the health minister is Mamata Banerjee. And this crime was committed on the watch of the Home Minister of West Bengal, and the Home Minister of West Bengal is Mamata Banerjee. So to say that this is like any other incident of crime it's totally hogwash.
I agree completely. I respect that thought. Kanchan Gupta, unfortunately, I'm out of time. I'll get you again. We'll have a panel discussion again. I promise that. Kiya Ghosh as well. I know there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of rage, and this is a conversation that is only half done. We will do this again, I promise you, but I'm out of time. Thank you very much to all three guests for joining in. This is certainly something that India needs to think about, and mostly Mamata Banerjee that needs to think about of how there has to be a public response to this horrific rape and murder and not politics over it.